September 1st of last year was such a landmark day for this university going into the ACC when it got the news that it was going in. And then the next day you play against Louisiana Tech. And I'm wondering, did you believe that this team had to win that conference championship from a validation standpoint to give you some momentum as you were coming into the ACC?
I don't know if we had to, but there was a lot of pressure. That Louisiana Tech game was the most pressure I've ever felt because I'm sitting there going, man, we just had the best day maybe in school history for sure in the last 4 decades. Last thing we need to do is go out and lose to Louisiana Tech and kind of throw cold water on all the excitement. So, but I do think, to your point, you look at the schools at the Big 12, UCF and Cincinnati and Houston that just went a year ago. You look at the Texas and OU's moving. You look at even what Utah and TCU were able to do a little over a decade ago. They all changed conferences right after winning a conference championship. So there were reasons they got in, but they also kind of validated it. And so there was a lot of pressure personally on me, and I felt like on us, that we didn't talk about, but you felt it because, one, we felt like we had a team that could win it. And we hadn't done it in 40 years. So we wanted to. But also, we didn't want to be the school that went 7-5, 8-4, 6-6, and then was going to the ACC limping our way in. Everybody said, well, they only got in because whatever. We wanted to be the school that went in, finishing the season ranked, winning 11 games, winning a championship. And now as we go into the ACC, it's like, no, they validated. They won a conference championship. They had a good team. They had a nationally ranked program. And it just kind of, to me, to your point, validates it. And so I think that's what was really satisfying, is we felt that pressure and we were still able to come through.
I kind of felt like the game in Memphis was kind of some of that, maybe more so of that validation because of what that game represented and how you all won that. I remember you telling the ESPN sideline reporter that this isn't the same SMU. And because of your history here, when you were here as Sonny's offensive coordinator, and of course, what we saw in 2022, there were several almost. Do you think that game, that outcome, maybe even more so with the drive that when Preston hit Jordan Hudson in the end zone to kind of seal it, changed the narrative for this program? Or do you hope it did?
I do. I think it was a big step in that. I mean, I think the whole body of work last year had a lot to do with it, the result being a championship and all that. But that was a big game for us for a lot of reasons. And, part of this, the new SMU was, we did have a reputation when I came back of faltering in November. In the first 2 years, we're 7-1 now in November. We hadn't won at Memphis in over a decade, so that game mattered. Can we win in November? Can we win at Memphis when the stakes are high? And I was a part of the game in 19 where we lost 54-48 with game day there. Great game. We just came up short. And so, they put their little video out the night before the game talking, all kinds of stuff about how you're not going to basically come in here. Almost tried to be an intimidation factor. And that was kind of my point of, this isn't the old SMU. They thought it was. They wanted it to be. It's not. We've created a toughness. We've created a culture about our program. And it wasn't just last year. It was over the last 5-6 years. It's been a collective group of a lot of players before and things. But it was a validation of hey, we can win in November. We can win important games in November to ultimately win a championship, and that's what you have to do.
I want to go back to your career now, just you're coming up through the ranks. You had great influences with Gus Malzahn, Manny Diaz, Sonny Dykes, of course, when he was here. A lot has been made of your relationship, of course, with Gus when you were at Arkansas. If there was one primary element that each of these coaches gave you that helped you become the head coach that you are, what do you think it would be from each?
That's a great question. There's been a lot of really – I've been blessed to work for, I think, 7 different head coaches, and they've all been a lead or great at something. And I think 3 or 4 of them have won Coach of the Year awards, and a couple of them have won national titles, So it's hard to narrow it down. I mean, Houston Nutt was who I played for and got my first GA job for, and he was the best motivator I've ever seen. He had a way to get his players ready on game day to play and have fun and have energy, and I thought that was special. Then I got to work for a guy named Gene Chizik, who we won a national title with in 2010. And, to me, Gene was always calm. He was the same guy every day. He, had a plan. We're going to work our plan. We're going to trust that plan. He never got too high, too low, when things were good or bad. I got to work for Pat Sullivan. He hired me to be my first OC at 27 years old at Samford University. He taught me, he instilled a lot of confidence in me as a young coach when I really didn't know what I was doing. He stayed with me, but he taught me how to lead people, that life's about people. It's about relationships with my staff, with the players, how you coach them, how you love them. Having that connection allows you to lead them and build confidence in them at a high level. Obviously, Gus was my junior high school coach. He hired me like 4 different times. I owe a ton to him. To me, the thing about Gus is a perfectionist. Gus has an identity. He knows who he is and what he wants to do, and he is a tireless worker at getting the most out of every one of his players, out of everyone on his staff. He doesn't let you as a player or as a staff member settle for anything less than your best. He's not settling for mediocrity. He's all about greatness and excellence, and that's just who he is. I did get to work for Randy Edsel for a year, and he was incredibly organized, incredibly organized. Working for Sonny lets his coaches coach, and I appreciated that. Trusting and empowering coaches to coach and know what they do, and believe in just, hey, I hired you to do a job, go do it. And if you're a self-starter and you believe in yourself, you want that. You don't want to be micromanaged, and he didn't do that. And then with Manny, I thought what Manny did a really good job of. Was Manny during COVID and a lot of trying times and a lot of pressure. Manny never panicked, and Manny always put the players first. And he always cared about the players, and he always made sure he connected with the players, brought the players in, asked them their opinions. So that was the first things off the cuff, but I learned a ton from every one of those guys.
Okay, so you were coordinator for all those years. And so when did you believe that you were ready to become a head coach? Was it a season? Was it a game? Was it a set of circumstances? Or did somebody come up to you and say, Rhett, you've done everything that you can do. It's time to make the next push?
That's a great question. I don't know if there's like one moment. I kind of believe that when I decided to get into coaching, like a lot of us, I'm sure that's the end goal. And I always felt like personally deep down, that I was kind of made to do that. But I didn't know if I'd get the opportunity. And so I just tried to live in the moment, work hard where I was. I had a couple big moments. When I went the first time at Sanford at 27 calling plays, I didn't know what I was doing. I made more mistakes than you can think of that first year. But that was a great first step. And then, I go to Auburn as 29 years old to be the OC with Gus, and going through that year, playing for a national title, being in a lot of big moments like the kick six and all the others. That always, gives you confidence. I think probably the most defining moment for me was when I left Auburn and went to Connecticut for a year. And that was the worst year I've had as a coach. We went 3-9, but it was also one of the most important years for me because I finally broke away from the comfort zone, went on my own, kind of bet on yourself. And I'd gotten to the point with Gus that, there's really nowhere else to go. It's time to go do it on your own and kind of take the training wheels off or whatever you want to call it. And, I took the job. They were 129th in the country out of 129 in total offense. There was nowhere to go but up.
Right.
And we finished the season 49th. So we did a really good job. We won 3 games. And I learned players are really important then. But got the opportunity to come here to SMU. And I think in that 19 season, the 19 season was the first year that kind of my personality and our staff, we kind of took still the foundational things I learned from Gus were there, but we just kind of stripped it all down and recreated the offense. And we're not running the Gus offense. We're not running any, we're running our offense. And the staff, we sat in there, and there's a little flavors of all the places that I and we have learned from. And we kind of created our own identity. And Shane Buechele with that year, we won 10 games, and we just kind of took off. And I think that's when it probably for me was like, okay, you can do this with help of others and not have to just follow the same blueprint someone else does. You can be you, be yourself. And it still was 3 or 4 more years before I got the opportunity, but that's okay. I wanted to be at the right place at the right time more than just being a head coach. And so I'm thankful it led me here.